Hi, Steve Hayes here, and welcome to Days Are Getting Better, episode number 38. In today's episode, I want to talk a bit about um, assumptions and the importance of diversity and being able to even detect and look at our assumptions, and a little bit about what's happening as a result of that, I believe, in contextual behavioral science and in ACT world. I'm going to talk just a little bit about some exciting changes that are happening in terms of things that I'm known for and have worked on for a long time, ACT Boot Camp, our courses, and the PsychFlex and MindGrapher app. I want to talk about ACBS, the Association for Contextual Behavioral Science, and its upcoming conference, and a few other things. Uh, so let's just get in there and get to it. In the blog that goes with Days Are Getting Better, this episode, I'm talking a bit about some of the recent randomized trials, one by the World Health Organization, one by a team that is looking at Afghani adolescents. Uh, and the theme that's in those papers and beyond that, that's inside the ACT research, you have to ask the question, though, why is this small corner of evidence-based intervention, psychotherapy, so widely impactful in lower and middle income countries? It's a fact that it is. That spectacular list of, if you look at the website, 1,225 plus randomized trials, and I'll let you in on a secret. The only thing that prevents us from being very close to 1,400 trials is the indexing and posting of what's coming, and that'll happen just in a few weeks if the staff can finish that task. But what's inside all that mountain of evidence across the mental and behavioral health issues and social justice and social wellness is the relevance outside of the weird countries, the Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. You'll see countries. And why would that be important? Well, I think the trials I talk about in the associated blog begins to show a little bit about why it would, but let me just talk about it in a slightly different way. For some hundreds of thousands of years, we've been riding the tiger as the human species. Hominins almost certainly did what we do to a degree, but boy, have we put it on steroids with symbolic learning processes. We know the chimpanzees, not too many, a few million years ago, we have a common ancestor, are not doing what we're doing. They're very special and unique species, very interesting one. And it's not like they don't cooperate and we do. We just are super cooperators. It's not like they don't have culture and we do. We're just super at our cultural development process in terms of speed and extent. And then there's arguably that point of language and cognition, and it's not that non-human primates don't have hoots and calls and gestures that impact in a semi-arbitrary way on how the rest of the tribe, the troop, or whatever, responds to snakes or a stranger visiting or whatever. No, that's true throughout the animal kingdom. Prairie dogs hoot, and the ones who hear it, if there's an eagle out there, if it's an eagle hoot, they jump in their hidey holes. No, but we've developed this system of symbolic learning. Learn it in one, derive it in two, put it in networks that change what you do, the little RT ditty. And that's wonderful, that's spectacular, and it's horrendous. Well, It's horrendous because, in part, not only do we overplay our hand when there's issues that we need to face, not only do we rely too much on our problem-solving ability and our analytic, judgmental processes, our weighing of pros and cons, and our predicting of futures that have never been, on our revisiting of the past, and on it goes. It's not just that. That for sure is wonderful, but also a challenge. It inserts a kind of sadness into human existence. As we all know, our lives will end. We all know that everything we care about will end too. And that's a challenge. It becomes increasingly a challenge with age, yes, but also with the sophistication of the culture and the scientific community. We didn't always know that the Earth would be spinning inside a red dwarf one day. How meaningful does that sound to you? But it's something more basic. We groove these cognitive systems as we learn to ride that tiger of judgment that then splashes back on us, on comparison that splashes back on us, on memories of how we've let others down or failed to be there for people that we love, that splashes back on us. Our lies and betrayals, our faults and our flaws, our sins, if you will, follow us through our life and go to the grave with us, sometimes without us ever saying out loud what they even are, even to our most close relationships. And inside all that are a set of assumptions. And assumptions are what allow symbolic systems to work, but are not themselves subject to the symbolic systems. Goodell, to the satisfaction of mathematicians, has long ago proven that you need them. You're going to do them. You're going to have assumptions that are outside the formal systems that you develop. Logical, mathematical, scientific, whatever. Or just learning how to be human. Learning how to be whole and free. So as we ride this tiger of language, each of us individually is challenged with how you're going to do that with equanimity, given all the things that I just said. And the single most powerful thing you can do, in my opinion, is dig down to the level of your assumptions, see them, and choose which ones you want to operate on the basis of. You have that choice. You have the capacity. It's not easy if you've been practicing for a long time that you're only going to be okay when you're practically perfect, or you're only going to be okay when you're approved of by others. You're going to only be okay when you don't remember that, or feel that, or sense that, or think that, whatever the thing may be, for example. And here's where diversity comes in. We are used to diversity of opinions inside a common and shared set of assumptions. And in the weird world, we can kind of get away with it because part of that system, that 12% of the human population that is driving 95% of the world's scientific findings, it includes assumptions. When we talk about the weird world, we're talking about, more than anything else, in my opinion, the assumptions that come from that. So what in terms of ACBS, the reasons that you may be even listening to this podcast? Well, here's one. I've been taking a little more time digging into some of the different ideas that are out there, reading a really cool article that I know is going to lead to a really cool book by Louis Bush, an Indigenous person in Canada who's been corresponding with and enjoying my conversations with for years. And I'm so excited to see what happens with the book that he's producing. And digging into the knowledge keepers of the indigenous peoples of the North, there are different assumptions about even what truth is, what the goal of life is, what problems mean. And some of those penetrate us right now. Let me give you an example. The idea that life is all interconnected and in a gigantic network, and that we are just participants in this larger network over time and space, if those are even the right words, that is built into the thought systems, the symbolic systems, the cultural systems of indigenous peoples, not universally, but in many areas of the world. Respect for the land, care for elders, the feeling of continuity across, and the creation of cultural traditions that sustain it across generations, the interconnectedness of all things. That's not necessarily inside our scientific practices. But one of the shout outs that I want to do, and it's in this blog, is that because of the radical contextualism that's inside ACT and the long view that was taken to develop processes of change that were not as culturally bound as many of the other things that are there. Principle like reinforcement is not entirely cultural free, but it's way more cultural free than a list of virtues, let's say, that somebody decides are common across all populations, and it turns out they're not that common across all populations. You name it. I don't mean to pick on anybody. Well, the cool thing about a contextualistic approach, a pragmatic approach, is that it pivots based on the publicly declared and communitarianly owned purposes of analysis itself. Now, in functional contextualism, that includes what the psychological level of analysis is, whole organism interacting with a context considered historically and situationally. It includes what science is, a social enterprise that has its purpose, the development of increasingly organized statements of relations among events that allow your end goals to be accomplished and based on verifiable experience. And what the goal of all that is, prediction and influence at the psychological level for the philosophy of science called functional contextualism, with precision, scope, and depth. And then those terms are unpacked. I won't do that here. You've heard it before. Fine. But how does that speak to the interconnection of all things? And the demonstrated ability of indigenous peoples to do a better job of protecting our planet. And even in the modern day, when we're trying to deal with an invasive species or things of that kind, if you involve indigenous peoples in the effort, proven ability to get the job done more efficiently than if you just come in with your theories out of Western forestry or something. I think that's true in mental and behavioral health too. And I think we're in a position as pragmatists and contextualists to take that additional step. And I think we've been doing it. How? When we take the classic 6 processes and expand them a little bit to talk about them in terms of flexibility, healthy variation that's selected and retained and fitted to context in each of these areas: emotion, cognition, attention, sense of self, motivation, and overt behavior. And yes, you can add dimensions. You can add spirituality if you want. You can add memory if you want. You can add dimensions. But just take those 6. And then you expand it to the social cultural level, which is above the psychological level. It's not psychological, it's social, but it overlaps with psychology and down into the biophysiological level. Then you have a kind of a sandwich that you can put, and that's what the extended evolutionary meta model does, which you can put these sensitivities. And once we're interested in really developing networks of those processes into a complex network that explains the particular person or couple or family or organization or neighborhood, not just the individual, don't say it that way, the particular unit that you're interested in, you have a system that can then take on, I believe, at least kind of wear the clothes for pragmatic purposes of the wisdom traditions inside indigenous peoples and their scientific implications as a kind of meta for the science that we're doing. I'll give you an example. When you're doing complex network analysis inside, let's say, unpacking a particular couple or individual in terms of processes of change and your goal that you have, and you're including the social part and including the physical and biological part and context, you have an analytic framework where you can onboard the complex networks of a system of thinking about our participation in the world that includes elements of the natural world, that includes the rest of the members of the group. We're trying to do that with pro-social. I think we can do that same kind of thing with populations that heretofore, or point of view that heretofore have not been included in Western science at the detriment of Western science and the betterment of people who are served by science. Now, that doesn't mean that you are thereby taking on the entire cultural system that's inside a particular tribal tradition, for example. No, you're not doing that. If you remember the tribe, you can do that. If you study it seriously, you can do that. But I don't think that's what we're called on. I think what the importance of diversity here is to hear the voices and engage in the conversations enough that you allow yourself to choose your assumptions more fully informed by the range of assumptions that are there in the human community and how that is played out. How is Western thought playing out? How is some of our economic decisions playing out, our political decisions playing out, our psychological systems playing out? So with that, I'll bring this episode to an end, but I do want to mention just a few other things, just a few things, just kind of, they're in the newsletter and so forth, but let me give a shout out for ACT Boot Camp. My wife and I developed that nearly 15 years ago. We ran it for a while and then we licensed it to Praxis. We've taken it back for multiple reasons, but a big part of it is that we really want to push the reset button. And we're putting ACT Boot Camp into Europe. Woohoo! Just type ACT Boot Camp, all one word, .eu. Not edu, EU for the European Union. And you'll see the opportunity to come hang out with Robin Walls and myself and Gijs Janssen there in September in the Netherlands. For the very first time, we're going to be in Europe. And we're going to repeat it. Being organized by Cycflex, the company that also brings you the app. I'm excited to tell you that they were, by the way, if you go there quick, by February 14th, before February 14th, you can get a pretty spectacular, not early bird discount, but an early bird because it's 8-9 months away. I'm excited to announce that we're going to be in Oakland with ACT Boot Camp for behavior analysts. When? In April. I think it's the 23rd through the 27th. I hope that's right. I'm going by memory and my old brain to make mistakes, in the Center City Marriott. They're in Oakland. So that's a save the date. And this week it'll be posted. If you're a behavior analyst, we haven't done it since 2022. Another reason I really wanted to bring it back home, because we're going to, in this case, through the Institute for Better Health, the same outfit that's bringing you Mindgrapher, going to be bringing you boot camp for behavior analysts with some regularity here going forward. My goal is at least a couple times a year here in the US of A. I want to do a little shout out for the Association for Contextual Behavioral Science WorldCon in New Orleans. New Orleans in July. Yes, indeed. We'll have a sweaty good time there. Down, enjoying the jazz and all the rest. But part of the jazz that I'm gonna really, really enjoy is a freaking spectacular lineup of world-class speakers, both within ACBS and without. Now, if I start listing names, I'm going to shame myself because I'll forget somebody, and then but I'm going to just say some of the ones that have traditionally been out. One who's kind of in, Stefan Hoffman will be there. A couple of great panels. One who's now fully in after all these years, all the way back to the WorldCon in Parma, David Sloan Wilson will be there with a couple of spectacular things. One of the top 10 most cited psychologists in the world, Michael Tomasello, a world-class developmental and evolutionary thinker, and who has ideas about, not just ideas, but theories and research and so forth that really line up in many important ways with CBS and the importance of symbolic systems, RFT, etc., and different, but related. And I've been trying to get Michael to come and hang out with us for 10 years. And he finally said yes. He will be there on a cool panel, but also giving an invited address. The person who's becoming a good friend and close colleague, Rick Hansen, known for his work, Buddha's Brain and so forth, Global Compassion Coalition, things of that kind, will be there. We'll be doing a pre-con, myself and Rick, 2 days of spectacular fun. He thinks differently than me, but there's this Venn diagram where we overlap, like, oh my goodness, what are we, brothers from a different mother or something? It's like, this guy really is a functional thinker, a big thinker, and yeah, he comes out of using the underlying neurobiology as his touchstone for understanding how we get into a kinder world and how to groove and retain the things and the gains that we make. But not just a good guy, but a good clinician and a good thinker. And we're going to have some serious fun there. Lisa Feldman Barrett, How Emotions Are Made, president, I believe, of APS, really major scientist in the emotion science area with a invited address, but also with a panel, including a panel with Stefan Hoffman, who is also a pretty darn good emotion scientist. And then people more from our community. Of course, the president, Ronna Murren, Jennifer Payne, a wonderful, wonderful person who's been extending out ACT into underserved populations and dealing with diversity issues that sort of was talking about Jinder Sadra, the editor of JCBS, all the way up from Oz, to talk about process-based work and medionomics and other cool things. And here I better stop because I know there's more, but if I don't stop, I'm going to then not have a complete set and somebody who's going to feel left out. Let me just say this. The deadline for submission is 3 weeks away. If you're doing something cool that relates to ACT and RT and CBS or whatever, and you're not a member of ACBS, why not? 8,500 people are all around the world. Come on, dues or values-based, pay what you think it's worth as modified by your ability to pay, just go there to www.contextualscience.org and then think really seriously about sweating it up with your friends and colleagues down in New Orleans come this July with a really, really spectacular conference. I think it's probably one of the best lineups we've ever had in terms of outside speakers and inside speakers. And I look forward to seeing you there. So this is one of the longest days. They're getting better ever. Sorry for that. But there was a lot to talk about. And I haven't even talked about yet the really exciting things that are going on with me and Guilford Press and a new book series. But that will be in the next edition. The days are getting better. Peace, love, and life, my friends.